Hi, I'm Crystal. So this week I'm going to continue on working in my 2024 planner, following the Junk Journal January prompts, and I'm building my pages for the month of February. And as always, I'm going to start off by showing the finished project because I think you need to see that to decide if you want to spend a few minutes with me. So the Junk Journal January prompts are hosted by Meg at Megjournals in collaboration with Get Messy Art. And I'm following the prompts from this list, although not quite in order. So I'm going to do memory stitched, layered, interactive, and pattern for this month. And I like having some prompts to follow. It really helps motivate me and give me some structure when I'm working in a project. So when I was working in scrapbooks, the pictures really guided what you did, but for junk journals, you don't quite have that same structure. So I really like having the prompts. So I got out my pile of stuff to start on the month of February that I had set aside at the beginning of the project, as well as my carryover items from the month of January, and just took a look at everything that I had kind of selected in advance for this, including some needles for that stitched prompt. And for the stitched prompt, I took a die and die cut some holes in these layers that I'm going to use for my interactive element. You could certainly do this with a needle or an awl, but I happen to have this little border die that did it, so I used the die. And so I've got this stack of a picture, and I'm going to use this green and yellow thread because it kind of matches the pineapple and green peppers on my pizza. But I've got this stack of a picture, a glassine envelope, and a junk mail window. So I'm going to stitch through those layers, and then I'm going to adhere everything to the page. That next page is about pizza night, which is one of my favorite nights. My husband makes pizza from scratch, the dough and everything, and we used to do it once a week, have homemade pizza and watch our favorite TV show. But my in-laws moved with us during the pandemic, and they had to admit pretty quickly that they found pizza once a week to be a little too often. So we now have pizza night once a month. So it is a good thing that I love my in-laws because I really love pizza night a lot. But anyway, that's why I've got pizza night in February because, I feel like February is a month that's all about love, and I feel like my husband making that pizza from scratch for me is certainly an act of love, and it's certainly something that I enjoy. So stitching through these holes was very easy. It was a good size for my embroidery needle, even with 12 strands of embroidery floss that went right through. And I think the colors of thread really coordinated both with that picture I tore from a magazine as well as from my next page for pizza night. Now that I've got everything sewn, I can adhere it to the page a little bit more easily. And that makes my interactive element there with my 3 layers. So I felt like the pizza night page needed a little bit more background than what I had. That's the back of a flyer that I've got the pizza pieces sitting on. And so I did kind of cast around the craft room a little bit for something to put on that page as a little bit of a background. And what I found is I've got this book of papers. I believe the book is from Japan based on the writing inside. And I like it because the patterns are so very different from anything I've seen in any craft line. This is a book I got from a bookseller, and I'm going to link a couple places below that carry it if you're interested. But it's just so different from anything else I've seen as far as craft paper. So now I've got everything adhered down. There's my interactive element. There's my pizza night page. And now I'm going to move on to my layering page. So this is the front of the junk mail flyer. And I did a little bit of acrylic paint swipe to kind of cover up the writing, but the acrylic paint doesn't make a very good writing surface, so I'm going to do a little decoupage with tissue paper. Once that tissue paper is down, you can write directly across it with any pen. It works just fine. That tissue paper makes a good writing surface, and certainly if it's adhered very firmly to the page, you have no trouble with it whatsoever. I'm not really sure where that blue and white Delft paper came from. I mean, based on the labeling on the tissue, I think it may have been some food involving apricots, but it's labeled in a language I don't speak, so I'm not positive. So on this spread, I'm putting down my planner dates, and I'm going to add one because I've signed up for this swap, and I've got a date when I have to upload my reveal, so I'm looking forward to that. And then on the opposite page, I'm putting some pictures that to me talk about love. I've got a picture of me and my husband I made during the December Ephemera Challenge, as well as a picture from downtown Dallas. Now the picture's historical, but that Pegasus horse stood downtown for so many years. It stood there when I lived in Dallas, and it stood there all the years that I went back to Dallas to see my parents, and I could tell that I had gotten home because I would cross the bridge and see that neon Pegasus, and I knew I was home. So the light bulb is from Dephemermeber, and I talk in that video about why I did a light bulb and not a heart. So here at the beginning of the February section, I'm putting my calendar and my month title. And I also did those during the December challenge. And so this stamp stamps 31 days, so you can use it for the month according to what day of the month everything starts, but I need to check how many days are in February this year. So we're going to pause, and it turns out 2024 is a leap year. So good to know. I'm just going to cover up the 30 and 31 so that calendar is appropriate. And there we go. So I've got my cover page. Then I'm going to do a little bit of decoration on my log. I'm going to put my tab on and clip it on with a binder clip. I'm sorry I'm out of frame there, but I'm going to clip it on with a binder clip just to make sure it dries in the right place. Put a few extra hearts on, put a few little decorations on. So these die cuts, I love die cutting, and I have a bunch of die cuts. So I just made a bunch and picked them out of my bits and pieces to get ready for this Junk Journal January. And the numbers I did during the December Ephemera Challenge. And I just picked some out that I thought were kind of appropriate, and I'm going to adhere them just to be a little bit of a decorative element on the page. Plus a few extra hearts because, of course, it's the month of Valentine's Day. Gotta have a few hearts, right? I think it's appropriate. So once all that stuff is kind of adhered and I know it's not going to go anyplace, can move on. And this page that I've torn out is great, but that big blank circle just looked too blank to me, so I'm going to put a die cut down there as well. And then I think I've got the challenge pretty well, although I don't know that I've got enough pattern. Even with all the stuff that I've done, I'm not sure I've really met that challenge, but let's see what pages I've got going here. Got my layer, got my log, got my month title. So I definitely have got memory because I've got my Dallas horse. I've got my interactive element, my stitched element. I did the layering, but pattern is a little bit iffy. So I think I'm going to attach some pattern or add some pattern to this brown paper page. I've got some watercolor here. I swatched it out to make sure I like the colors. And that brown paper I've treated with a little bit of gesso. So I think the watercolor would be just fine without the gesso, but you would need more of it, I think. That brown paper would just drink up the paint otherwise. So I'm just adding a little bit to this pattern. I think those are radish leaves. You can't see all the pattern, but I'm just adding a little bit more pattern there and putting some dots and some stripes. Just a little bit of mark making to kind of decorate the page. Blending my blue and green inks because that's the color theme that I kind of have going throughout this planner. I find it easier to work with a cohesive color scheme. It helps me keep things kind of going together and not clashing too much. Maybe if I were a little bit more skilled, I wouldn't find a need to stay to one end of the rainbow or the other, but just given my impatience and lack of real artistic talent, that works for me. So thank you for joining me today. See you next time.